Introducing the new full-time four-wheel drive Lexus LX 450. It's everything a Lexus is, and everything a Lexus isn't.
The Lexus LX 450 is the epitome of putting lipstick on a pig. Now, the lipstick in this case did not make it look better. Although back in the day, I think you could probably argue in 1997, whenever this pig was built, the lipstick might have made people think it was more classy. I mean, Biggie Smalls made a song about it, Lexus LX 4.5. This was very popular among people with money, and it's hard to tell right now because it does not look classy at all. But back in the day, this was considered more of an upscale build. Well, we want to take all that upscale lipstick off of this thing because it just gets in the way for off-road and turn this back into, I guess, a pig in this analogy. It's kind of a goofy analogy and I'm running out of clever. But once we pull all of this extra crap off of here, we can really strip down the weight, which is something that this pig happens to need. It definitely needs to be on a diet because we want to make it a respectable off-road truck. The good thing is, this Lexus has super robust parts, and it makes it to where we don't have to do a ton of crazy modifications, and I'm going to use some of that extra time to make this look like an off-road truck and a lot less like an old, worn-out luxury SUV. You might have noticed that the wheels that were put on this landcruiser are 8-lug, and the landcruiser is a 6-lug. I own so many vehicles, and I'm so tired of having all these different bolt patterns. So I'm officially, all the wheels that I order for every project from here on out is going to end up being 8-lug. And the cool thing is, if later on down the line I do decide to swap to some 1-ton axles, I'm already prepared for it. So from here on out, everything is 8 on 6.5. So I've got these special adapters that I'm assembling right now. And once we get these on, we can bolt the tire up, or we can bolt the wheel up, and we can decide how much we've got to trim and if we have to lift this. I really don't want to have to lift it, but if we have to, we can order like a 1-inch or a 2-inch lift spring or something like that. Oh no. Well, this 2-piece wheel adapter will not fit over the hub of the rear axle. Well, that's something else I'm gonna have to figure out. For now, I can at least get the tire kind of up on there and see how it fits. The wheel adapters that I bought are 2-piece, and the inner piece fits right over the center bore, no problem. The center bore on these Land Cruisers is 106 millimeters. The advertised center bore of these adapters is 108, but the second piece next down below 108. So I have to go online. I did find some adapters that have a larger center bore, and they seem to be true to size. So we're gonna order those, and hopefully they show up quickly and we can put them on later on in the video. Now, Chris, what? You got these to take off. 1, 2, 3. See, it should be the same size socket.
What? I love taking off sockets.
I'm glad you like taking stuff off.
Yeah, it's my favorite thing to do. I take off Legos.
Good.
Yeah, so much fun.
I'm building this Lexus in competition with a couple other teams. One team would be Rudy and Holly. The other team is Bleep and Jeep. And in this competition, we do have some rules, and I'm going to touch on those rules later. And you just watched me kind of break one of them. We're not supposed to have other people work on our vehicles unless we pay for it out of our budget. So we need to determine a per-hour charge. So I'm going to see if they're going to let me slide by letting my 5-year-old son, quote-unquote, help, or if they're going to see what I'm actually doing, which is I'm trying to babysit him while his mom is really busy. So in any case, later on in the video, we'll get into all the rules and the nitty-gritty of this competition. But for now, we just got to get this thing stripped apart, do some weight loss, and then we can start to actually build it out and chop fenders so we can fit these huge tires. this was a true Land Cruiser 80 instead of the Lexus version, I probably wouldn't be doing so much body work. But the reality is, once you pull all this trim off, you have like 80 holes, and it's gonna make it look so unfinished. So what I want to do is I'm gonna do the body work. It's gonna take a bunch of extra time, but it's not gonna take a whole bunch of extra money. And I think that because of the way we're building this, we've got enough extra money in the budget where we can actually do like a single stage spray and change it to some sort of a bright color. I haven't figured that part out yet, but I mean, if we're gonna do all the body work, we might as well throw a fresh coat of something over the top of it, because even though this is going to get rubbed into trees and rocks and stuff, I would love for the finished product before all that to look really nice.
We got a bunch of stuff to get out of there, don't we?
I just took all this Land Cruiser stuff, the whole interior, to the dump, all that AC stuff, and it was almost 1,000 pounds. And I had to take it. I wanted to wait, but I didn't have time. I've got to remove some more stuff in here, like this heater core and motor, and you know, there's like a CD player in there. Like, getting rid of all this, we're gonna be able to lose even more weight. And I mean, even on the back, once we cut this really long frame section back so that we can give ourselves a better departure angle and build a trim bumper, we're gonna lose weight here. We're gonna lose weight on the mount for the spare tire. I can unbolt all that and get that out of there. So we've still got even more weight savings to do. So it's very encouraging to see that we've already lost so much. So now we have got a ton of body work to do. I want to fill in all of these holes for this trim, which is going to take forever. And then before we get to that though, I would like to test out a new tool and try to pull out that dent. I love gadgets. Some people love electronic gadgets, and I like those too. But when it comes to tools, I'm always trying to find tools that will make life a little bit easier. So when you tell me that there's a pneumatic slide hammer suction cup for doing body work, as someone who likes body work, this just was too enticing to pass up. So the plan here is to suction cup this with the small suction cup. It came with 2 different sizes. We're gonna try to pull this dent out as much as we can, and then I'll massage around, because it's not gonna like pull it out in magic, it's brand new, but it's at least gonna pull this out enough that I can remove the taillight, and hopefully I can get a, you know, between a hammer and a dolly, we can smooth this out quite a bit. I wasn't planning on doing body work on this. In fact, I was planning on doing a weird paint job that would kind of accentuate the damage, but I just couldn't live with that trim. I thought I was gonna be able to, but the trim is so ugly on here. So now that we pulled all that Lexus trim, it's starting to look like a Land Cruiser, and I'm loving the body lines. I'm actually really liking the way this is looking. I'm not gonna repair all these holes and then not repair this dent. So, well, there's another one on the other side too. So with a couple hours of dent repair and then like a day of filling holes, this is gonna start to look really straight and really clean, much less like a dumpster fire. And then we can start talking about paint. But first, I want to try this out. I've never used this, so we're going to learn how this works together. All right, I can feel it sucking. I've already kind of wiped this down a little bit. Let's see how we do. It's on there. It's a big old dent. Try it a little lower. Oh, look at that. We'll just work our way up. Move up a little more. Oh, I see. Try it over here. I'm going to try the bigger suction cup and see if it'll work a little better. I think this suction cup slide hammer is going to be really nice for when I rub a door into a tree and like I have some damage on a big flatter panel. But for something like this where the damage runs into a curved part of the panel, it makes it kink and it's going to be really difficult to pull that out. It really needs to be pushed. And unfortunately, when you're pushing something behind a panel like that, unless you have full access to the backside, it is very difficult to do it smoothly. So I think that this is a great tool that can be used in conjunction with other tools for this type of repair. But in the future, as I'm repairing out different vehicles that I own that I'll rub into a tree or a rock or something, I'll probably be breaking this back out and using it multiple times to really see where it's going to shine and where it's not going to. Now I'm going to switch gears and we're going to use a Porta Power to push this dent out. I have always borrowed Porta Powers from friends, but I finally got my own Porta Power from Harbor Freight, and this has got a whole bunch of different attachments that are going to be perfect for this type of repair. These types of repairs are really difficult to do when you don't have great access behind, and if you can't get a pry bar in there, there's really no other option. So a Porta Power is a great way not only to push out this dent, but as you're going to see, we've got a really damaged driver's side quarter panel that we need to like stretch the whole rear of the body of this. And a Porta Power is really, I mean, it's the only way to do this at home. If you look close, you're going to notice that there's something off here. And what's off is that the rear lower quarter panel is behind the tailgate. And that's not how it's supposed to be. There's supposed to be like a 1/4 inch reveal between the two. So, and I can tell that this has been like hit in a couple different ways. One, it definitely was like, it probably it backed into something which destroyed the light. But I think that it might have got hit in the side, but it got hit on the bumper. Maybe the bumper pushed this whole thing in. Anyway, stretching this out is going to take a couple of different strategies, and we're going to start just by trying to stretch the bottom of the quarter panel against the body mount, and then we're gonna have to go a lot more elaborate and then like basically stretch this against the other side of the truck. I'm so pumped to finally have my own Porta Power. This is a super powerful tool if you're good at creative problem solving. And as you can see, it's not perfect, but when you compare it to what it looked like before and just factor in that this was like 5 or 10 minutes worth of work, I mean, this thing's worth its weight in gold. Now we can move on to the real time-consuming stuff, which is filling in all these holes and making this look nice and straight again. I don't see any reason why this strategy won't work, but I've never seen it done like this before. We'll find out. I think that this should work just fine. The whole point is I don't want to have to like strip the whole interior or like all the different panels and pull out all the window regulators and everything so that I can like get to the backs of all these holes. This felt like it would be the fastest way to get this done, and it should be a pretty good fix. So we tacked steel on the backs of all those holes as a way to back some fiberglass reinforced body filler. I went everywhere trying to find some steel reinforced body filler because I used to buy that stuff for multiple projects, but nobody has it locally. I imagine they still make it. Let me know in the comments if they stopped selling that for some reason over the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years it's been since I bought it. But even Professional Paint Store that I bought all my paint, they didn't even have it, which was really interesting. So this fiberglass body filler should work just fine. And the whole point is that there's little voids and holes on the sides of the backing that we tack welded in there. And we want it to like grab in there really nice and tight. So when it hardens, there's no chance that it's just gonna like come out of there on a hot day or something like that. I'm concerned that if we just fill it with traditional body filler, that it's gonna end up flaking off eventually. Is it all worth it? I don't know. I want to present, whenever we say this is a completed budget-friendly project, I want it to look nice. And so to me, all this extra elbow grease is worth it. So we're going to put the fiberglass reinforced body filler on there, knock the tops off of all that. Then we're going to switch to the normal body filler. I've got a whole bunch of like remnant cans of body filler from past projects. Knock all that down and we can start to prime and prep everything for a very quick, very low budget paint job.
Cannot be oversold the results you can get from a simple, cheap hammer and dolly setup. This rear corner panel is unrecognizable from the way we got it whenever I bought this Lexus. And now with just a little bit of body filler, where it's going to look darn close to factory. This is definitely going to be a cheap paint job, and there's going to be dirt in it and dust in it and stuff like that. But our panels should look pretty good for a vehicle of its age before we go and destroy them off-road, of course. Anyway, now I want to install a snorkel, and I would like to explain why, because I think a lot of people in the rock crawling world completely overlook the value that a snorkel has.
This piece of plastic is a part that you do not see on very many rock crawlers these days. And there's a reason for that. There was a time before Angry Eye Grills where every noob just put a snorkel on it because it looked cool. And it made it to where all the guys that feel like we're cooler than everybody else decided not to use them as much anymore, including me. I've always thought snorkels were cool, but I also didn't want to get mocked by my friends, so I stopped using snorkels. Over the last year, I've recently started putting snorkels back on rigs. And it's insane on the performance difference when it comes to longevity of your air filter. I have done a lot of these 5 and 10 day wheeling trips, and I'm telling you, a very common through line on every single one of these is somebody in the group starts having a bunch of like engine problems, and then after scoping everything out, you pull the air filter out and it's like 5 pounds. We can fix this really quickly before we ever hit the trail with a $100 snorkel that we get on eBay. So right now it pulls the air right here from on top of the tire, and all of you that have done these long trips, you know, when you're in a line of people and you're just doing miles and miles and miles and miles of dirt road, it is insane the amount of dirt that gets sucked in, and you can completely clog an air filter in a day if you're in a place that's dusty enough. By just simply moving the intake up here, we're cutting out a ton of the dirt because it's not pulling it right off of this tire that is spinning dirt, right? Now, if you're in a line of people, we all know, you can see the dust cloud go up like 12 feet, but you can also see it's layered. Like the first 3 feet's the worst, and then like the second 3 feet's not as bad, and then, the higher you go, the more that the dust is like dissipated. On top of that, I spent another $30 on a pre-filter that's not here yet, but I have put pre-filters on 2 other rigs this year. It is insane on how much these cut down on dust. When this thing shows up, we'll test it out with a shop vac and we'll see if it's actually gonna work for us. But in any case, this is something that, we're planning on going to Colorado, at least that's the plan right now. And if we go to 10,000 plus 1,000 feet, we're all gonna take a giant hit in horsepower. This only has 215 to give. I don't know, how much do you lose at 10,000? It's gonna be a lot. And plus this already has 300K, so it's less than 215 anyway. I wanna deliver the coldest air that I can to it and the cleanest air that I can to it, and not have to bring a whole bunch of air filters to be changing out because we're doing this competition in the middle of the summer. So anyway, while I'm letting all this body filler cure, we're gonna install this snorkel, then we can figure out how much we can trim out of the 2 front fenders, and then we'll go back to doing body work and getting this thing prepped for paint.
I didn't have quite the right size hole saw for this hole, but that can be easily remedied by a sawzall and a thin metal blade. Sometimes you just have to be flexible with the tools you have and use whatever you got to get the job done. Officially test time. I wanted to bring the forklift in here so that we could look at our progress. I need to make a decision very soon on whether or not this is going to need a lift kit. I mean, that's the beauty of all this, right? We're going to trim away as much as practical in order to fit this size tire with no lift. And then if it doesn't work out, all we have to do is put a lift kit on it and we've got all that extra room. So we could get away with, you know, maybe a 2-inch lift instead of a 6-inch. In any case, I'm very impressed with the front suspension on this thing. We've been able to trim out enough to maximize that front suspension and max it out. We've hit bump stop, so there's no more up travel in its current iteration, and it looks good. The rear, on the other hand, it is just, I've already removed like 1.5 inches of material, and I think that I can remove another like 3/4 of an inch or so without having to modify the door. Worst case scenario, we can absolutely modify this door and change like this door jamb, but for it to be at a quality standard that I would like, we're talking like a week, to be completely honest. So I am doing everything I can to avoid that. In any case, I can trim a little bit more out. We will do that, and then we'll probably just limit the up travel with a bump stop extension. And I've got aftermarket shocks that I already ordered that are for a 1 to 3 inch lift anyway, and they have a longer collapsed length. So we're probably going to have to limit up travel a little bit in order to keep from destroying those shocks. So this might work out okay. We're going to still make up for it with more down travel because the collapsed length on these shocks is longer, and then the extended length is also longer. So now that I've seen everything that I need to see, I need to make the decision on whether or not we're going to keep all the factory links or if I want to spend the money and upgrade to like some Barnes 3-link kits. What would you do? Let me know in the comments. Right now I'm leaning towards picking up some aftermarket kits, but I also do kind of like the idea of saving the money and just rocking that stock suspension. When it's all said and done and we're looking at a finished project, I want these these places that we trimmed to look really nice. Not necessarily factory, but close. And the factory seam here was just basically a rolled piece that was the inner fender liner into the quarter, and then it was like spot welded together. We cut all that out so there's no more structure here. And so what I'd like to do is I'm just going to weld the edge a bunch of different times. We're gonna grind it down, and then everywhere that we can, we're gonna fill with fiberglass body filler just to help give it a little bit of body kind of like behind and around this leading edge. There's a couple different ways we could have done this, and this one won out just because of its simplicity, and it's honestly, it's super low cost. The original plan was to take some 1/2-inch rod or 3/8 rod or 5/8, I don't know, and bend it, roll it to where we would have an edge that we could roll the bodywork around. But I don't think that I would be able to cut as much out, so I decided not to go that route because honestly, like every 1/4 inch matters when you're trying to fit a 39 into a tub like this. So what I decided to do is we just tack welded everything just over and over and over and over. Lots of tiny tacks, because that's what you have to do with bodywork, with panels this thin. And then went over it and just like really pushed in a ton of this fiberglass reinforced body filler. I say a ton, as much as I could get into all the little holes and everything. And then I even, like I kind of rolled this in a little bit on this wheel well to make sure that I could like weather seal this as much as possible. So this is just the first coat. I'll knock all that down. We'll do a second coat to make sure that it's nice and sealed and tidy. And then more body work. I'm tired of body work, so we're gonna take a break from body work. I wanna build something out of metal. This winch from Warren just showed up, and this seems like a really good time to go over the rules. First off, this is an Onyx build challenge, not a cheap truck challenge. Onyx is paying for all this. They're the ones who are sponsoring the whole competition. They saw that all of us love to see these build challenges, and no one's doing them anymore for some reason. So they stepped up to the plate. They invited me and some other YouTubers to go on this head-to-head challenge to make a bunch of fun content, and then the winner gets to go to Ultimate Adventure 2023. The budget is $15,000 with the price of the vehicle. I've already spent $4 grand on the vehicle, which for those of you that ever shopped around for an 80 series Land Cruiser know that that's a darn good deal. Even though that thing's in rough shape, that's a really good deal. So I've got $11K left to build out something that is fully capable of going on Ultimate Adventure. We're talking highway speeds, we're talking hardest trails in America, and no trailers. So you can trailer to the start and then you can trailer home. But for the 5 days that you're on Ultimate Adventure, or 6 days, you're living out of this rig. So 15K does not go very far when you can't trailer it from place to place. The competition is in July. Yeah, we just talked about no trailers. Now we have these asterisks over here, and these do not apply to our budget. So maintenance and safety, this is one that I suggested early on. I wanted to see all 3 vehicles that are in this competition show up at their absolute best. It would be a bummer if Holly and Rudy showed up and to get a bigger tire, they did no maintenance on their vehicle and then they break down the first day. That's not good content. That's not fun for any of us. I wanted everybody to show up at their best. And then safety equipment, I didn't want someone to build a less complicated roll cage in order to save money and get a better shock. I think that when it comes to safety and maintenance, this is kind of a no-brainer. It doesn't come out of the official budget. We all, of course, still have to pay for it, but it doesn't add to our 15K requirement. Now we've got our Ultimate Adventure requirements also don't count, and that's really interesting. These last 2 rules are ones that were thrown at us at Eastern Jeep Safari, and this is gonna make it to where we can build a better vehicle because it frees up a little bit of extra funds. So like that brand new Warren winch, that's a UA requirement. You have to have a winch, so that doesn't come out of my 15K budget. Lockers, that's a UA requirement. Pretty sweet. Now, what's not a UA requirement, which surprised me, is bead locks. I would have thought bead locks would have been on there. So my bead grip wheels, that did come out of my budget, and they're not cheap, but they are my favorite wheel by far, and I was not willing to compromise. So the bead grips are gonna come out of our budget. If it doesn't add to off-road performance, but it does come from an elite partner, then that means that it doesn't come out of our budget. This was an interesting one. So that means that instead of me buying the cheesy Amazon lights that I was gonna buy, I actually get to get a quality light from Rigid, who is one of the elite partners. You know, we get to use Rugged Radios, they're an elite partner, so they fall into not adding to off-road performance. So there's a few things that are gonna make it a better vehicle that aren't gonna add to our budget, and I'm pretty happy about that as someone who's competing in this. However, when it comes to the end, I'll give you two prices of what it costs. I'll give you the official price of what added to our official budget, and then I'll tell you exactly what all this stuff costs if you wanted to build the exact same rig yourself. The votes plus the competition equals the winner. This is the most important part. You have to vote for who you want to see. I would love for you to vote for me. I would love to go to Ultimate Adventure again. But if you would rather see the Bleep and Jeep guys go or Holly and Rudy go, I totally get it. Vote for whoever you want to see in an Ultimate Adventure. The whole point is to go on onyxmaps.com and vote for a team. You can vote every day. Whoever gets the most votes, most likely going to be the winner. But we've got a whole bunch of curveballs that are going to be thrown at us in July at the competition, and we don't know what those are, and those will play a factor on who gets to go.
There's a ton of winch options out there, but I chose this one for a couple of reasons. And reason number one is that at 72 pounds, it's pretty reasonable. That's not that heavy, it's not that light, but it's definitely, that's a manageable weight to put on the front of your rig, and weight is something I'm very sensitive about. Two, I can remote mount the top portion of this, which is going to make it much more compact, and not all winches are easy to like relocate the control box. With this one, I actually plan on maybe running switches into the cab, so we'll see. We'll get there when we get there. But I wanted to have a certain level of flexibility for size. And three, I didn't know exactly how high or how low I was going to mount this thing, and because of where I live, I wanted to make sure I bought a winch that was waterproof. And this is IP68 rated waterproof, whatever that means. It's on their website. And then on top of all that, because this is an elite partner, me being an elite member, just meaning that I have an elite membership through Onyx, something anyone can get, I get 20% off of all Warren products. So instead of $1,000, I'm paying $800. I think that's pretty fair considering all of the capability of a winch like this and the fact that we're talking about a top tier brand. So those are the reasons why I chose this winch specifically. As far as winch location, I knew this is something that I was going to have to be flexible with once I just pulled everything off of the front of this landcruiser. I don't like a winch to be super high and far out in front of the grill if I can help it. So we'll see. We'll see if I can get this nice and tidy and get it sucked into the body, or if I have to make it high and in front of the grill. I won't really know until we start to locate things. Unfortunately, my press brake is not quite long enough for this piece, and so I did the good old-fashioned just like cut a line 90% down through the material and then just bend it over a little bit and then re-weld it on the back side. I have had issues in the past with this warping the piece. I mean, it's the nature of the beast, and for that reason, I didn't weld like complete welds anywhere, but I still got a pretty good amount of deformation, and for that reason, I decided to try to put it in the press brake and straighten it back out and
it worked pretty good, actually. This is something that I'll probably keep in my back pocket as a way to fix any sort of bending or contorting of flat plate in the future.
I think I'm going to make some big changes, and it's not ideal, obviously, to be making changes this late in the game. I've already got quite a few hours into putting together this winch plate, but I don't like how low it is. I didn't want to have a winch, so you can get them pretty high if you make a winch bumper that sticks the winch out like up in front of the grill, right? There's lots of examples of that online. And I didn't want to do that. Plus, we already have low slung frame rails. These are very, very low by any off-road standards as far as like how far down the frame rails are in the front and the back. So I was thinking, well, I'll just build a winch plate at that same height and we'll be all good to go. But now that it's in there, I just don't like how low that is. It's nice that it's not sticking way out here and it's like recessed in. But I'm seeing Plan B that's available to us. This is probably still a little hot, so bear with me here. What if we put this winch plate up here? We need to make some small changes, but there's the bolt holes on the top of the frame rail or the nut holes, I guess, are the exact same as they are on the bottom. So our pattern here would fit. I would just need to trim down. So having a bar across the back here is really important because whenever a bar, I don't know, I'm obviously running out of steam. I'm gonna have a hard time articulating this. Having some rear support on the back of a winch channel like this is really important because whenever you're using the winch, it's pulling from the back more than the front. So whenever you put a thin strip of something back there, it adds to a whole bunch more of that like vertical rigidity and makes sure you don't slowly but surely bend your winch plate. So I'm gonna have to trim the corners just a little bit. So I'd trim here, trim there, and then that would make it to where I could slide this back just like, what do I need? Like a 1/4 inch more. And then these bolt holes that I've already drilled would match up perfect. Then I would take that down to where it'd be nice and tapered, maybe build a plate on the side. And it would give me the opportunity, what I would do is I would just cut at an angle and then weld some sort of like a bash plate on the front of the frame because these are hanging down low. But if we like cut it at an angle and then weld a plate on it, then at least if it hits rocks and stuff, it's gonna be so much easier to slide up and over things. And it's gonna give us a better approach angle. I really like it. There is one caveat. This would have to go, not the end of the world. But I was doing some measurements off of our winch, and it looks like I could still fit the grill right on top of the winch. So instead of this lower valance or whatever you would call this thing, instead of this being all one piece, we would cut it, and then it would be two pieces for our parking lights, and then there would be enough space in the middle for the winch. I think that that's the best compromise. Without this being a winch that's really high and really far forward or being too low slung. If we make some modifications, we can make this like a mid-slung winch, and I think that I'll be able to have my cake and eat it too. The plan, honestly, is I want to build a big, gaudy, ridiculous tube bumper, but I wanted to start with a winch plate first and then build off of the winch plate, build all of our tubes. So right now, we're just trying to establish a foundation. Then I can break out that tube bender. We can start adding a whole bunch of tube and a big old aggressive off-road looking stinger.
Moving this this winch higher did solve some problems, but it created other ones. For instance, I have no way to turn my clutch on and off, which does suck, so I can't get it into free spool. So there's a few different options here. One would be to trim the grill, which I really don't want to do. I'd love for this to stay as factory looking as possible when it comes to things like grills. Another option would be just never use free spool, but I don't like that either. Option 3 would be to rotate, like unbolt this part of the winch body and rotate it either down or forward or backward or something so I could clock it in a way that I could reach the handle. I haven't quite figured it out, so this is another problem that I'm going to have to stew on for a little bit and do a little research, see if there's other handle types that you can replace this with, and just see what kind of options are out there. If you have any suggestions of a clever way to solve this problem without trimming the grill, let me know in the comments. I just picked up a 2-inch die for this Swag Off-Road bender, and so real quick, I need to pre-bend some pieces so that I can hold them up and figure out exactly how I want to bend the 2-inch bar for this front bumper. So I'm thinking of like a 2-inch center bar and then everything else being 1 3/4 inch. I don't think I'll use 1.5 inch anywhere, but in any case, I like the look of a mix of different size tubes. I just think that it's aesthetically pleasing. So we're going to give this a shot with some 2-inch for the main bar and then build everything out from there.
I need your help. I'm exhausted. I know myself very well. If I continue to build after going this hard in the paint for like the last 10 days, I'm gonna start making a bunch of mistakes and making a bunch of bad decisions, and then I'll come back and I'll have to undo all that stuff. I've played this game multiple times. So I just tacked on this bull bar. I'm curious, do you think I should go with this style bar or should I do a stinger? What I'm seeing in my head right now is I would love to do a combo and do a stinger, cut the bull bar there, and tie it into the stinger. I think that would look rad. Plus a little bit of bar work here, some sort of plate that would be like a recovery point and tie into our 2-inch bar. That's our main bumper. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Let's just vote 1 for stinger and 2 for bull bar. Let me know what you think. Also, I do have some big news. Ed Shin is no longer on the team. He got an amazing career opportunity, and we had a big talk, and he's taken that career opportunity, which he absolutely should. And we got to talking about whether or not it's realistic for him to continue to do this with me, and it's not. And Ed's a great guy. He would definitely continue to try to show up and help with this. But I wouldn't ask him to do that. He's a good friend, and he needs to focus on family and his career. So you'll still see him on the channel and stuff. We're gonna be hanging out on the weekends all the time, but he can't be coming down here a few times a week helping me work on this. So I have a new partner. His name is Dave Chappelle from the Dirthead Shed. So make sure you follow Ed Shin on YouTube. Make sure you follow Dave Chappelle, Dirthead Shed on YouTube. Both great guys. And if you want to see me and Dave take this thing to ultimate adventure, make sure you vote for us on onyxmaps.com. Also, if you want to be a part of the Elite Partner Program and you get humongous discounts on method wheels and on Warn winches and Yukon gear and axle and rigid lights, and RCV just came on board and Marlin Crawler just came on board, then make sure that you use my coupon code. You can save 20% off your yearly membership with coupon code Dirt Lifestyle. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Onyx for allowing me to do fun challenges like this, and we'll see you on the next one.